Hey y'all. So since we didn't have time to go over this in class, I just want to make a quick little video for you demonstrating how to use textures and materials and lights in Unreal. This is everything that we're currently using in week 3, and this will show you how to do it for your assignment for next week. All right, so I have an Unreal Engine project open right here, and things in Unreal are color coded, the different assets, the different types. What we're working with today are textures and materials. So textures in Unreal, this is this project that I have open right here. This is just a learning project, the Sun Temple. And you can see it's nicely organized with folders. Textures and materials have their own folders, as well as the meshes. The textures in Unreal are colored red. You can see at the bottom of each one of these files, it's colored red. And materials are colored green. So I can take any of these materials that are built into this project and I can just drag them onto an object that I want to apply them to. So if I want to, change this pillar here with this torch on top of it, and I want to put on, I don't know, one of these floor tiles, I just click and drag and drop it onto it. Oops, that looks a little weird. Let's drag it down here. There you go. So let's change the texture and change the material of it. Now just randomly dropping materials on different 3D meshes that they weren't necessarily supposed to be applied to could give you unexpected results. So just be forewarned. And you might get results where there's a lot of bad seams or the material doesn't lay on the 3D mesh as you expect. That's because it hasn't been UV mapped for that material appropriately. And again, UV mapping is something that we briefly talked about, but it's a little outside the scope of this class. So, if you have a material that you really want to apply to a 3D object, let's talk about it outside of class, and I can show you what you need to know. Another way to apply materials to meshes is over in the details panel. The details panel here is over here in the bottom right. This details panel shows you the details of anything that you click on in Unreal. So I'm just going to click on, I don't know, this wall, I guess. Sure. So clicking on this wall, and if I go over to the bottom right here, it shows me what sort of mesh is on here. This is SM underscore trim wall underscore U, and it shows me the materials that are associated with that. Some 3D models have multiple materials. You can hypothetically have as many materials as you want on a 3D object. Again, that is determined by when the 3D model is created, what sort of textures are applied to it in the 3D program like Maya or Blender, Cinema, something like that, and how is it UV mapped. That's what determines how many of these different material slots there are. Again, a little outside of the scope of the class since we're working with pre-created assets for the most part in here. You won't have to do that. You'll just be aware that there's going to be different slots for objects that correspond with different parts of the 3D model, different polygons of the 3D model. So I'm just going to drag something onto each part of these. If I drag this rock material down here, that part of the 3D model now has that material on it, the rocks material. Really messed it up. Looks beautiful. You see the remainder of the 3D model is this brick texture, and then also the molding up here on the top, or the trim, I guess they call it. If I wanted to keep adding things, I could add that to there. You see, this is where it doesn't look that great, right? It's because this is this kind of reflective ornamental mirror, and it's not really meant to go on the molding of this pillar. So, it doesn't look great. So you can drag materials onto objects directly into the editor window. You can drag them onto the material slots in the details panel. That's up to you. A lot of different ways to do the same thing as with any program. All right, today I want to show you making custom textures, or I guess importing custom textures into Unreal and showing you how the material editor works. So I have a handy dandy brick texture here with a normal map. And I'll put this in the Discord so you can use these if you want. What we do with this texture is going to apply to pretty much any texture that you either create yourself or find on the internet somewhere or purchase. Again, we're making custom textures here. If you're using existing assets from a project, you don't have to make a custom texture, but I would still like you to know how to. Okay, so I am going to bring this into my project. Oops, looks like I already brought it in here. I'm going to create a new folder just so you don't see that. Just call this folder textures, go into it. So there's an import button down here in the content browser. So we're importing any sort of asset, whether it is a 3D model or a texture or a sound. Lots of different things get imported this way. Let me find where this brick texture is. All right, so here I'm going to select both of these that I want to import. The color texture, the diffuse texture, and the normal map. I'm going to import both of those, select them both at the same time. They both come into Unreal. So now I have the two textures here, but I need to create a material for them to be something that I can apply to a mesh in the editor. So in order to create a material from it, you could go to the green button here, add new, and you can click on material. That's going to create a blank material for you. But in order to save yourself a little bit of time, if you already know the texture that you want to use in the material, you can always just right click on it. And at the top here, it says create material. Click on that. Just call this bricks underscore mat for material. Typical naming convention for materials is underscore mat. All right, I'll double click on this to open it up. And now I am in the material editor for this material. So we can click on these nodes here and drag them around with a left click on the mouse. I can hold down Alt on the keyboard to break these wires. You hold down Alt or Option on the keyboard and click. You can break existing wires. Leave that connected. And in this case, the diffuse texture, the color texture here, gets plugged into base color. There are almost 99 times out of 100, maybe even more, you're going to have a base color. That's what the texture actually looks like. I guess if you just wanted pure reflection, you wouldn't need a base color. So as soon as I connect that to that, you get a little preview window over here that shows you what it looks like. And down in the bottom right corner, you can click on to see what it looks like on a flat plane, or on a sphere, or on a cylinder, or on a lot of different things, different shapes. I'm just going to leave this a sphere. So this looks all right. If I click save, you always want to save your material. Otherwise, it's not going to save. Go back to my level here. What do I want to put this on? I don't know, maybe I'll just put a cube in the level here. Stop messing up the beautiful level. Just put it on a cube. All right. So now see down in the bottom here, not only do I have two textures, the red icons, oops, but I also have a green one, a material. So I'm going to drag this material onto this cube and put it on there. Before we do that though, look over in the details panel. You see that it doesn't look like a brick right now because it doesn't have brick material on it. It has this default white basic shape material. As soon as I put this brick material on here, it's going to change in the details panel as well. There it is. And there it is down bottom here. Beautiful. So this This looks all right. This is a good start. It does not have the normal map on it though, so it looks super flat. So we do have a normal map for this texture, and I'll show you how to create custom normal maps momentarily. But since we have an existing one, we'll just use this. And if you go back to the material editor for that material, remember you can always get to the material editor by double clicking on the material in the content browser. Double click. Scale this window down a little bit so I can see my content browser. And just drag the normal map in here. Just grab onto it from your content browser and drag it and drop it in the material editor for the material that you're working on. All right, so we have a normal map here. Where do you think we plug it in? We plug it into normal. So RGB into normal. These other channels here, red, green, and blue, and alpha, this is like how color channels work in Photoshop. You can separate things out by individual color channels. A little bit more advanced from what we're going to do right now, but that's what they are. So I plug the RGB into the normal, and now the normal map's applied. If we look at it here in the preview, we have a little bit of bumpiness. You can see that the light catches on the grooves of the different, like the cement between the bricks here. It looks a little bit more bumpy. Click save. Let's see how it looks in our level. Yeah, a little bit. Really depends on the lighting, I guess. Oh, there you can see for sure. Let me rotate it and see if we get a difference. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, look at the indentation of the bricks. Fake bumpiness creates that fake shadowing. That's the beauty of normal maps. All right, so we imported a custom brick texture that I downloaded from the internet somewhere. It came with a normal map already. That was great. What if you wanted to make your own normal map, as well as some of the other maps? Well, one very useful site, and I'll put this link in the Discord as well. Somebody made this normal map maker just as a web page, and what you do is you just drag your texture into the viewport. You play around with these different settings, and it creates the normal map for you. Not just the normal map, but other maps as well. Ambient occlusion, specular, all that other stuff if you need them. You don't always need all of them. And then you can just download it. So if you have diffuse textures that you find on the internet that don't come with the other maps, feel free to use this site to create those maps should you need them. And again, I'll put that link in the Discord. All right. What about some of these other settings in the materials? I'm going to double click back into my material. See here we have metallic, specular, roughness, some other stuff. I don't have texture maps for these. Texture maps are basically black and white masks that show where the values for these different channels should be applied to on the 3D map. So if you have a texture map for metallic, you could plug it in here. If you have a texture map for specular, you could plug it in, etc. But say you don't. Say you just want to use numbers and math to just make the entire thing shiny or the entire thing very rough or specular. We can do that quite easily. If you hit the 1 on the keyboard and left click in the editor here, you will get what's called a constant. Alternatively, you can right click in the grid and type constant, just a regular constant, and it will pop up here. If I plug this into metallic, set to 0 right now by default, nothing should happen. But if I crank this up to 1, it gets a little bit more shiny, right? what if I create another constant, holding down 1 on my keyboard, left click. If I plug this 0 into rough, it should get really shiny. Oh yeah, look at that. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and save that. See what that looks like. Oh wow, look how shiny that is. Too shiny. And that just applies that channel for metallic or specular or roughness to the entirety of that material, which oftentimes is what you need to do. If you're just looking to make something shiny, and you don't need a texture map to make the entire thing shiny. The texture map just specifies intricate spots where this area is shiny, but not this part over here. You know, if you wanted to make, say, for instance, the bricks, the red part of the bricks themselves really shiny, but not the grout, the cement in between here, you could go into Photoshop, select all the red of the bricks, create a selection, have wherever the bricks are that are red, they would be white, and then have all the grout in between would be black. And you would create a metallic map that you could then export from Photoshop into Unreal, and then just the red parts of the bricks would be shiny. No, we could do that. Why don't we just do it? Let's do it. All right. Let me open this. Go into, where's this at? Downloads. Oops. Freestyling. Here we go. All right, so I'm gonna open the texture file. Oh, I guess I could have just clicked on it right there. Derp. I'm gonna use color range just to select the red. You can use whatever selection tool you want. All right, I'm going to make this white. Oops. Make that white. Control Shift I to inverse, and then I'm going to make everything else black. I guess I don't need to inverse. I just put a layer underneath it and make that black. Oops. There we go. This is kind of quick and dirty test here. So the bricks aren't pure white, but you can dial that in depending on your preference. I'm gonna save this out. What do we want to call this? I'll just call this bricks metal texture. Maybe I'll have this be the roughness actually. No, I'll have this be the metal. All right, if I imported this into Unreal, import, go back into my material, make some room, drag it in. So now instead of just a number that is applying it to the entirety of the texture, I'm just going to plug this into metal instead, and it should just apply it to the red part of the bricks. And get rid of this one. You can just select things and get rid of them with delete. Holding down left mouse button allows you to marquee select things. So check it out. Now, only the bricks themselves are shiny because we're telling the metallic channel of this material that the only thing that should be shiny is the white part of this texture, which just happens to correspond with where the red and the bricks are, because that's where we selected in Photoshop. Right? Pretty cool, right? So you can make masks to designate certain areas um, shiny or not shiny, or illuminated or not illuminated. See if I can import something else here. Another texture here that is a smiley face. This is just a black and white smiley face here. So remember, with masks, white is 100% on, black is 100% off. And we're going to end up with an illuminated smiley face here. So if I drag this into my material, and I plug this into emissive, it's hard to see on a sphere because it wraps around it. If I look at it on a plane here, you can see it's a smiley face. It's not very bright though, so let me show you how to make it more bright. It's a little bit more complex setup. We have to use a few new nodes. If you hold down M on the keyboard and left click, you'll get a multiply node. So plug the output of multiply into emissive color, plug the RGB from the smiley face texture into A. Then we need to set another constant here. 1, left click, plug this into B. If we crank this number up high, see it's set to a 0 right now, so that means it's off. If we set this to a 1, it should be white again. All right. If I set this to, I don't know, 1,000, it should be really bright. Whoa, way too bright. Let's set it to 100. There we go. Cool, right? Click save. Nice. Look at that. Gorgeous. All right, that's all I have to show you. For materials, if we want to look at lights though, before we go. So the lights are over here on the place actor panel. You have all your different types of lights. I'm working with an existing level here. And if I drag a point light into my scene right here, I can move it around just like any asset. And if I play around with the details panel down here, I can set its intensity, its color, how far does it illuminate, is it actually on or not, all those sorts of things. If I crank this number up to a high number, now it's really bright. Say I want to change the color on it, I can change the color on it. Pretty straightforward. Spotlight is more of a directional light. You can see that it has a cone attached to it. I crank this up and I'll make this a different color. You can type in values here. You can also hold down left click and move your mouse and it will scrub through different numbers. If you want really big numbers though, you have to click on it and type them in. There you go. Got some good disco vibes here. Pretty straightforward. I'm not going to go through each type of light. They all kind of function the same. Just play around with placing lights to illuminate your lovely worlds that you construct. Last thing I want to show you is cameras. So if you go to cinematic here, drag in the Cin camera actor, you can drive this around just like you would drive anything else around. And you see, when you click on it, you get a little preview in the bottom right of your editor window that shows you what things look like. That's what allows you to help with framing. Alternatively, this is a little bit more intuitive. If you right click on it and go to Pilot whatever it's called, that will make the viewport, you basically become the camera. Your eyes become the camera. So now you can navigate around the scene. And you see that because this is a camera view now and not just an editor view, it actually has some depth of field, which is fairly nice. So this will be a nice way for you to more frame your shots that you make for your assignment, your 3 hero images, in a little bit more of in a more beautiful way, because you'll get depth of field and stuff. When you're selected on the camera, you can play around with its settings, things like where the focus is, or what aspect ratio it is, all that sort of stuff. If I click on the focus settings, a manual focus distance allows you to change the focus. This one below it, draw debug focus plane, I always click on that because it gives you a visual indicator of where the focus actually is. Sometimes you have to crank this number down a little bit, but you should see this purple wall that comes in, right, as I scrub this. So now it's focused right on the corner of this box and not on the background. So now everything looks purple. You got to go and unclick that checkbox and then it will disappear. It's just a visual reference for you to focus things. And so now check it out. We got nice depth of field in the background. If I were to click on my camera and lower down that aperture, you see I get even more depth of field. And don't forget you can hit the G key, G for game on your keyboard, and that will make any of the UI elements disappear. So then you can take a nice pretty picture with the drop down in the top left. The top left of your viewport here. If you click that little upside down triangle and you go down to high resolution screenshot, click that wherever you're framed up right now, whatever your editor window is showing, that's what's going to have a picture taken of it. This multiplier number, you can crank this up a little bit. I wouldn't go higher than a 2 probably, because you might crash your little MacBook Pros. So I'm going to put this on a 2 right now. Click the camera button at the bottom, and it will process out. Depending on how powerful your computer is, it could take a moment. Then down the bottom right, it will pop up a little link. I would click that link before it disappears, and it will take you right to the folder. Otherwise, it's buried in your Unreal Engine project. So here I have a picture. Yeah, it's a pretty picture. So then you can upload that to your blog and then post the link to your assignment in the Discord channel for week 2-3. All right. I think that's it. Eventually we're going to look at animating cameras so we can do cinematic camera fly-throughs. That will also allow us to animate lights and have them move around or change color over time or flicker, change brightness over time, all sorts of stuff like that. We could animate materials that change on objects over time as well on the timeline. But that's going to be in 2 weeks, I think. All right. Hope that was helpful. Go ahead and do the assignment, and we'll see you online.